righty. Hello, everyone. Richie Alcoholic. Good to be here. Carl, thanks for having me. I know it appears that I was 2 minutes late when in fact, I was a couple days and a couple hours early to the Sunday meeting. Just getting a jump on things. Actually, that's 3 days and 2 hours. But thanks for asking me to come out. Actually, what's funny is I jumped in the shower. My wife, interesting story. I flew up north to do some work. I travel for work for sometimes, and because I took a flight during these fun times, my family wanted nothing to do with me. There was a camping trip planned, and I was unable to go on that camping trip, so I stayed home and quarantined and got a nice Q-tip up my nose. It's been a week, and so they came home, and my daughter decided to jump in the shower with me, and so that prolonged that process, and so I raced out here, looking fancy fresh as I do. But regardless, glad to be here. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love my life. Before I lose you to whatever plans you have on this lovely Thursday, I hope you know that AA works, and it works well. I'm a big fan of the Covina sobriety, the 502 Club. I've built a family here, quite literally, and also figuratively. My dad's in the room, not in this room. I'm actually in my dining room talking to my laptop, and none of you are really here. But my dad is in this room in this meeting with us. And for those that know, I met my dad through a DNA test, and we're both in Alcoholics Anonymous. And we just found that out a few years ago, and it's magical. We talked yesterday and checked in, and I see him now, and it doesn't get old. But let's see. I'm an alcoholic. I didn't know that I would be speaking about it to people all over the world. I would have had someone jot it down, or take notes or take pictures or something, because I didn't know it was going to be such a big deal. I thought I was just sneaking around, and I was just a kid and trying to get into trouble. And if I'm quite honest, I didn't like it. I was not a fan of drinking. I didn't like the taste. I was really young. I actually had to practice becoming an alcoholic. I had to put in work. I didn't give up, not a quitter. I had to really fight for it. A lot of kids were sticking to the whole DARE thing. I don't know if you guys remember DARE, but that was my era, the Nancy Reagan sort of, hugs, not drugs kind of thing. And it didn't work for me. I was a big fan of drinking. And so I got myself into a lot of trouble, and I kept practicing. I didn't like the way that beer tasted. I tried various types of hard liquor, and then this is always fun. I stumbled across what worked for me, because at 10 years old, I think I was right around 10, taste and effect mattered. Effect was what I was there for, but taste at 10 mattered. Up to this point, I was pretty much a Kool-Aid kind of Ovaltine and Strawberry Quick when we had it like that kind of kid. But I finally found what worked for me, and it was this lovely little invention by two gentlemen named Bartles and James. And I was quickly held up to ridicule by my friends. I would stroll into the little junior high kickbacks. You guys remember kickbacks? And I'd stroll into my little kickback with my 4-pack of pina coladas. And everyone would start laughing at me and calling me names. And, by the third one, I had a pretty good buzz going. And I didn't care what you called me. You could call me grandma, and it was fine with me, because, I was drunk, and that's what I came for. So as I said, I practiced, and I kept going, and I got really good at drinking. And then I got really bad at it. It's like a bell curve. I was bad at it, got really good at it. There was like a peak there, the top of the roller coaster, and then it just got grim. And I'm young. I got sober at 21, the ripe old age, the ripe old legal drinking age. And the party was over. I had been introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous prior through my best friend, Damien. Damien was a magical little leprechaun. He was French Moroccan. His mom was a single mom. My mom was a single mom. We were thick as thieves. We were left to our own devices. His mom went to UCLA, and both of our mothers went to UCLA, and we lived at UCLA housing in West LA. And we'd run the streets and rob houses and tag, and, always on the fringe of gangs and stuff. And, we didn't know any better, playing tackle football on cement and just having fun. And so, Damien, when we split up, I got thrown into Catholic school, and Damien ended up in gangs. And so, but when we left, we were both rocking these like size 50 Dickies, or he was rocking size 50. I couldn't even pretend to rise, size 50, but he's got these size 50 Dickies, and there used to be these canvas belts. I don't know if you guys remember these with the chrome initial on the belt buckle, and then you would hang the front down real low. And I had an N. Yeah, my name is Richard Blair, and there's not an N, not even in the middle. I can't find an N anywhere in my name. But I rocked that thing with pride. Tell you what, I was tough. And Damien had an S, and there's not an S in his name either. But we were pretty tough, and we had a lot of fun. And next time I saw Damien was a few years later at a coffee shop in West LA. I'm a bit older at this point and seasoned vet with drinking, and there he is sitting there. And like I said, he used to crease his white T-shirts, and I don't know who irons their T-shirts, but seemed like a lot of extra work in my book. Hard enough to iron a button up. So I see him sitting at this coffee shop. He's got his legs crossed the kind of artsy way, and he's got his non-filter Camel. He's got this deep, broody look on his face, like he's thinking really deep thoughts, and he was never thinking really deep thoughts. He was actually just trying to get laid, and it worked. I mean, the guy, he stayed silent, and it just it worked like a charm. I couldn't shut up, so it never happened for me, but it's okay. Still trying. I should say my single mom tucked me in until I was 15. That's always cool. Yeah, I'm her favorite person, and she's mine. That's pretty neat. Asked me about my day, if I had any bad feelings and such. Needless to say, I'm a bit soft. Yeah, the fact that I'm married today is impressive. That guy that gets tucked in until he's 15 typically doesn't get married. And if he does, it's not a good sight. But lo and behold, I'm married, have a beautiful life. Anyway, so Damien takes me to my first AA meeting, my first ANA, and I was tripped out. He prefaced our little field trip. Well, first we started hanging out again, and we hadn't hung out in a while. We'd try and catch the rough, tough, and dangerous to Hollywood, and trying to get into clubs, the RTD, and try and get into clubs, and typically get denied. And every so often we'd weasel our way in, or we'd end up at some party in the hills, or what else? We'd end up twiddling our thumbs, throwing dominoes. Didn't matter if it was utter and complete boredom or the best night of our lives. Damien stayed stone cold sober throughout the whole thing, and that was mind blowing to me. I didn't understand how you could party without partying, because to me, partying is a verb. You meet someone out there while you're drinking. There's always that question like, "Hey, what's up? You party?" And I'm not talking like, are you into confetti and streamers? I mean, like, you get down like I get down, and so it's a bit strange when he could stay sober. And plus, when I'm loaded, when I'm drinking, anyone that's sober is a narc. None of them are to be trusted. They're just suspect, Meanwhile, I'm the shadiest guy in the room. If it's not nailed down, I'm trying to steal it or trying to figure out the come up. And but here he was, sober, productive member of society and such, and he can't be trusted. So we start going to parties and stuff, and he says, he tricks me into my first meeting and says, "Hey, do you want to go to an AA meeting?" I thought, oh man, this guy is you're crazy. I'm not going to narc headquarters. So he tricks me into it. He says, "Will you just go to this meeting to support me?" And I thought, man, oh man, there's that loaded loyalty. I have my people's back when I'm out there. And, had he said, there were times he said, "You want to go rob Rite Aid?" And I said, "Let's roll." It made perfect sense. I'm like, yeah, they're not there. It's closed. There's a door ajar. Let's do it. And we did that. We sold the cartons of cigarettes for, way less than they were worth, but we made money. Anyway, so let's see. I go to this meeting. He prefaces it with, "Don't worry, it's not a cult." And I say, "Oh, cool. At least it's not." Wait, what? Like, I've never been anywhere on the planet where someone said, "Don't worry, it's not a cult." And I thought, okay, so it's a cult. And he said, "It's at this log cabin in West Hollywood." And I said, "Oh, really, Lincoln?" I'm like, "What are you talking about, log cabin?" And sure enough, we get there. The place is packed, mind you. It's Thanksgiving morning, 1998. The place is popping, spot to be. Everyone there is an alcoholic, and I don't understand that because they all look pretty good. But I look, and sure enough, it's a log cabin, and I'm thinking, what is this doing here? How has this survived all these years? Because if you've ever been there, it's actually a log cabin, and somehow it survived. And so we get there and the place is packed. I know it's called Alcoholics Anonymous. I think I know what those words mean, individually. I don't know what happens when you put them together besides improper grammar, but we get there and everyone seems to know each other. And at this point, I'm not an alcoholic, but I'm probably closer than anyone that I can see at that meeting. And he says, we need to go inside and save seats. So I go in and I save seats, and we don't even get two together because it's so packed. And I put one in the middle, I put one on the bench against the wall. And then he says, okay, let's go outside and smoke a stove. So I go, okay. And I get my non-filter out and I put on my best, I'm here to support a friend face, which you guys all saw and said, oh, hi, newcomer. And so everyone came up to me. I was pretty malnourished. I was wearing a bright orange shirt that said, I heart heroin, because I hadn't really planned out this field trip too well. Big puffy red, glittery red heart. But we got there and this guy comes up to me and he says, hey man, where'd you get that shirt? And I told him about some girl that slept over and I never gave it back. And I think that's what I said, but I think what came out was, and he just walked off. He's like, right on, man. The next guy said, you need to take that shirt off, kid. That's a trigger. And I went, a trigger? I'm sorry, like the part of a gun? What are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, dude, that shirt could cause someone to get loaded. And I went, loaded? What's with all the gun references? Because not once in my life at this point had I ever been loaded. I never called up the boys when I got paid on Friday and said, hey, fellas, you guys want to go get loaded? Drinks on me, I just don't talk like that. And anyway, so the whole thing was weird. He kept asking me, who's your sponsor? How much time do you have? And then the meeting time guy rings the bell and, oh, looky here. It looks like we're going to jump into what it's like now. What I'm like now. This is my beautiful daughter, Harper. And you see all those people? Can you say hi? Can you wave? She just got out of the shower. Mom switched places with me. Are you a little shy? Hey, look, it's Grandpa Roy. Can you say hi? Hi, Grandpa Roy. All right, you. I'm going to keep talking, okay? I love you. Oh, go see Mom. Oh. I got a good life. The program's been good to me. And I know that's like simple science, making a baby in that. It's a little easier than some think. But if you need any pointers, man, talk to me after the meeting. Yeah, so if any of those arbiters out there. Anyway, I was a little freaked out. I sat down. My friend gave me the seat in the middle at the meeting. And the old guy next to me was pretty creepy. The girl next to me on this side was pretty cute, but no one was to be trusted. They're all a bunch of narcs. And so the meeting gets going. The first person gets up and they say, hi, so-and-so alcoholic. And everyone chimes in chanting, hi, so-and-so. And I don't know about you. I didn't have a dictionary handy at the time, but that's a bit cult-ish, chanting names and such. And I thought maybe that's just the president or, best all around in the sober yearbook or something, because I'm just going to let that one go. And then the next person gets up and they're going to read a portion of chapter 5 from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I thought, oh, is that all? They're just going to read this potion of this spell of the sorcerer's big book. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I've seen bigger. Like there's way bigger books than that. Lots of them. But that's the big book. I'm like, the ego on you guys. So anyway, he gets up and he says this whole thing. And at the end of it, he says A, B, and then he says C. And everyone chimes in again, chanting. God could and would if he were. And I didn't know what the last word was. Didn't need to because I heard chanting and I heard God. At this point, I know it's a cult. I look at my boy on the bench and I said, this is a cult. I'm looking around. This is a cult. And he's doing the whole pump the brakes thing, because I'm not in my right mind. I'm still schmammered from the night before. And the next person gets up and they say there's no dues or fees, much like Lindsay said earlier. And all of a sudden this basket goes by and I'm thinking, no. He just said there's no dues or fees. Like, what are we collecting? I didn't understand the whole self-supporting thing. And I realized quickly that it was this weird Jedi mind trick where they're like, there's no dues or fees. And then everyone like starts coughing up the cash, And I looked at the old man next to me and I almost said to him, no. He just said there's no dues or fees. But I stopped myself because I realized, I'm not on the inside on this one. So I let that one go too. And then they kept going. You guys couldn't stop clapping. Oh boy. California. I know there's some visitors here from all over. I think I saw Colorado and Ireland, Dublin. I'm heading out there in March. That'll be fun. Reno. Yeah. Toronto. I see. Yeah. A lot of friends. But in Southern California, we love to clap. We're very self-congratulatory, another sober breath. That's reason for applause, Oh, Brian made the coffee. I mean, everyone loses it for Brian. And I just want to follow all of you. Like, this is my first meeting. I just want to follow you to Starbucks and see if you clap for the barista, say, oh, it's a grande. You put the lid on. I was just freaked out. This summer campy, kumbaya kind of thing. I wanted nothing to do with this. I knew it wasn't for me. The meeting kept going. We held hands at the end and said the Lord's Prayer. And I thought, I left the meeting and my boy comes up to me outside smoking a cigarette and he says, hey, so what'd you think? And I said, never. He goes, what do you mean? I said, never. And he said, I don't understand. I said, I will never let it get so bad that I have to come here. And then I realized I was kind of hurting his feelings. So I stopped and I said, listen, I know this is your get down, whatever works for you. What did you guys say? Keep fighting the good fight and come back tomorrow. Like, do it, bro. I hope it works. And I'm glad you found what is doing it for you. He said, not for you. I said, no, sir. Funny thing about never. Here we are. My hair is drying and it's doing this weird like curl thing. Anyway, so that was my intro, and I wanted nothing to do with this place. Funny thing about alcoholism, for me, I'll speak for myself. It talks about it in the big book really well. It describes this point of being beaten into a state of reasonableness. Being beaten into a state of reasonableness. And that's exactly what happened to me. Alcohol put me through an alcoholic boot camp, and it whooped me till I just said, yes, sir. Okay, ma'am. Thank you. What else can I do? Is there anything I can do to help out? And that's what you taught me. I went to my first meeting back because I went to a bunch of in and out trial runs, more out than in, you know what I mean? Scott Redmond was speaking, and I didn't know this until this year. I found out that it was Scott. And the way that meeting worked was a men's stag upstairs in Studio City at the what was that? Jerry's Deli, or the bowling alley. And the way the meeting worked was there was participation, and then the speaker would share. And I had a lot to participate. I had 3 days sober, and I needed to plead my case to the men in the room to give me a handout. But I knew I couldn't make it look like a handout. I had to say that I was willing to work for it. Like, I'm not looking for a handout, but I was really looking for a handout. And so I said, I think I had my mouth on the mic, and it was very loud, and everyone kind of backed up and said, hi, Richie, alcoholic. I have no place to live. I got no money. I have no job. I have no money for food. I'm really struggling here. I'm not looking for a handout. I'm totally willing to work for it. And everyone said, thank you. And Scott said, or actually everyone said, thank you. If you can sit down in the front row, make sure you can hear the speaker, keep quiet. And then when the meeting's done, thank him, and then help us put away chairs and pick up cigarette butts. You'll be just fine. And I did some quick math, and I didn't know for sure, but I figured it was not a paid position. I figured this was slave labor, and I was no one's butler. I'm not that type of guy. And I said, no, I'm talking about, I tapped the mic to make sure it was on. Hello. No, actually, I'm speaking of necessities, shelter and food. If I just need some help. And Scott R. stood up so gently, and he said, I'm sorry, son. And he says, go ahead and take a seat in the front row, Richie. It's time for you to shut up now. Make sure you can hear us. And at the end of the meeting, put away your chair and go pick up cigarette butts. You're going to be just fine. And at this point, I was thoroughly confused because I knew I heard them right both times. And I knew I did the math and it wouldn't help me. But I just sat down and listened. Scott R. broke tradition that night, and he spoke to me intentionally. He said, Richie, I was just like you. I thought if I got all the stuff, if I got the place, if I got the job, if I got the life, then I could actually have a chance at staying sober. And he said, you're putting the cart before the horse, like it says in our 12 and 12. He said, I was just like you, but let's just pretend I had a magic wand. And let's pretend, bing, I got you that job. Bing, I got you that place to live. You know what, kid? Even you, bing, I got you laid. He's like, I got you a girl. And he said, the problem is if I didn't bing, give you a foundation in the 12 steps, you would most likely relapse and you would lose all those things. And you would repeat that cycle over and over until you finally invested yourself into Alcoholics Anonymous. And in that brief little description, he summed up 5 years of my life. And I was intrigued. My interest was piqued. So I sat down, dejected, completely lost. I stayed for the whole meeting. I put away my chair and in one other. I thanked Scott with my head down. I knew no one understood me. You guys didn't hear me. I was talking about real life things that I needed, that I had lost through my alcoholism. And you guys gave me semantics, an opportunity to help out for free. It's just bad math. I went downstairs and I started picking up cigarette butts on the side of the bowling alley by the little cigarette butt thing. And I knew it wouldn't work. I almost did it just to show you, watch. I'll start picking up cigarette butts and you'll see nothing's going to happen. And I did that. And a couple minutes later, this guy came up to me, John H., the tennis instructor. And he said, "Hey, listen, I heard you. You can stay at my place for 2 weeks, but no longer than that. My sponsor says if you stay any longer than that, I'm hurting you and I'm not helping you." I got a spare room, which was actually a large hallway that he put a cot in. And he put this blanket. Remember that light blue blanket with the satin border? It had all it was all pilled, one of those, and it was covered in cat hair, and I'm allergic to cats. But what was I going to say? I'd rather sleep on the streets. And I slept on the thing and I'd wake up all stuffed up. And he was a tennis instructor. This guy was out the door at 6. He was up at 5 o'clock. This is crazy. I'm detoxing, trying to figure out my life. This guy's up and at him. If I'm out at 6, you're out at 6. And I went, okay. But he'd give me a bowl of cereal and yeah, it's crazy. And then I would go and try and find a job on Ventura Boulevard. I was living in the Valley for 8 months. Obviously things had gotten pretty low. Yeah, the old 818. And I cannot relate. It was rough. But after that 2 weeks, one of the best speakers in Alcoholics Anonymous let me stay at his house for a month and a half. Leslie J. He's a very short, white-haired actor with a Southern accent. And he's got one of the greatest pitches in Alcoholics Anonymous. And he's openly gay. And I knew this, and I thought that he wanted me. I thought he was trying to get at me. Meanwhile, I'm 95 pounds. My acne is yelling at everyone to get away from me because I hate myself. I have deep set eyes, as you can see. I cast shadows in these caves. Mind you, if I'm drinking and staying up all hours, it gets pretty ugly, or I should say uglier. And Leslie wanted nothing to do with me. And he actually did have a spare room, which was cool. The first morning I woke up after sleeping the night at his house, there was a note he had propped up an envelope and wrote, "Help yourself to some Pop-Tarts or cereal. Went to take the dogs for a walk. I'll be back at 11 and we can hit a noon meeting." And I was blown away because this man had lots of electronics and valuable things in his home and there was no one there. And he left me there day one, astounded, confused. And I didn't rob him. I was blown away by the compassion and the love of Alcoholics Anonymous. I had a Pop-Tart. And I just stuck around and he came back and he took me to a noon meeting. Funny thing, I saw Leslie. This was probably about 9 years ago. I see Leslie and I asked him to speak for him and he speaks. I used to be secretary of this meeting called Four Horsemen up in Bel Air. And great meeting. And I told him the story. I said, "I don't know if you remember me. You let me stay at your place for a month and a half." And I told him, and I kept I still have it, the envelope that he wrote to me because it was so impactful to me. And I showed it to him and he said, "Oh my God." And he's got this little Southern accent. He said, "Oh my God, I did?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Wow." He goes, "Listen, did I try and have sex with you?" And I said, "Not once. I was so freaked out. I thought you were going to try." He goes, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of myself." Oh, it was classic. Leslie J. He's seriously one of the greatest. His story is profound, but I have been blessed in Alcoholics Anonymous. My story throughout my journey, actually this Sunday, Father's Day, I'll have 19 years of sobriety. And the beautiful part about that is that I've stayed sober for 19 years. It's not cash and prizes. And I have that. I have a beautiful life. I'm very blessed, but I stay sober every day. I wake up early, I read my books, I open my arms into a V and I say, thank you, God, for your infinite grace, love, and abundance. I'm open to receiving your abundance and I invite your abundance into my life. And I say, thank you. And I love my life. And you know what? God continues to bless me. It's unreal. I knew for a fact this program would never work for me. I could never stand point A, and point B was this magical place that never existed, because as soon as I got to point B, it was point A again, because I brought me with me. And it's kind of tough when you bring yourself, and I'm the common denominator. I ruin everything. But things got really good. I did what you told me to do, and it started to take off. I stayed sober consecutively. I didn't even think about having a drink. The obsession was removed, was lifted. I was given a daily reprieve. And all I had to do was what you told me to: catch a meeting, stay in the literature, stick my hand out, and connect with something greater that for many, many years I did not understand. Sobriety's been a trip. I met, how much time do I have, Carl? I want to throw up some hand signals. Steal second. 20? 20, the big 20, 2020. What a year, right? It's almost hard not to talk about outside issues with so many. An election year, a pandemic. I mean, God, it's just a minefield. Yeah, so I met my wife at an AA dance. I see Puente houses here, all 3 houses, right? 4 houses. Oh, wow. Check you guys out. Or did it switch? I don't know. Anyway, welcome everybody. If you ever get invited to one of those herpy paw dances, I suggest you go. I don't know if you guys have heard of herpy paw. It's a big YPAW committee. It's huge, massive. A lot of people are in herpy paw and they don't even know it because it's just spreading. But I met my wife at one of those dances in Glendale. Have you guys heard of Glendale, California? It was a Halloween dance in 2011. She dressed up like Jessica Rabbit. I didn't dress up. I'm not the dress up type, you know. Now I am because I have a daughter. It's a lot of fun. Now it's fun. But I didn't dress up. My wife dressed up like Jessica Rabbit. You know, just red sequin dress, the shoes, the heels, the wig, a lot of cleavage, you know, and you know, Jessica Rabbit. And boy, oh boy, did I have to have it, you know. Up to that point, I'll be pretty honest. I don't know if she can hear me, but anyway, I was kind of a man of convenience, if you will, prior to my wife, kind of a low hanging fruit kind of guy. Wasn't really willing to you know, talk to the girl I was interested in. But if a girl talked to me and said she was interested, I was always willing to see where it would go. And it never ended well. But here was the first opportunity that I had to talk to a girl that I was actually interested in. And she sat down, she had her phone in front of her, and on my walk over to her at this dance at the Windsor Club, I kept trying to think of impressive lines that I could say that would get her to like me. And I thought, maybe I'll quote the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you know, Jessica Rabbit. And I thought, oh, that's dumb. And I thought, oh, maybe I'll quote the Big Book, impress her with my AA knowledge. And I thought, well, that's probably the worst idea. And then I sat down next to her. My time was up and I just looked at her. And someone always told me, they said, and this goes both ways, don't think this is sexist, but they said, dating in the rooms is like shopping for fresh produce in the dented can aisle. But I was on a mission. I was going to find that fresh produce, tell you what. And there she was, dressed up in a red sequin dress. And I sat next to her and I gave her my best AA line that I could come up with the walk over. And I said, hey, that's the best I could muster, was a big old wobbly, you know, cracked voiced hey. And it worked, you know. We're just a couple of dented cans, you know. Man, oh man, we got married 3 years later on a Wednesday in November 5th. Remember the 5th of November. And it was a Wednesday in 2014. And it was beautiful. And we've had a beautiful life together. And I don't want you to sit here and think, if you are new, that the point of this is to stay sober long enough so you can get married and have kids and find that career. That's not what the point of Alcoholics Anonymous is for me. The point of it is, God, I feel so kooky. Look at this. I'm not digging this. This is what happens when you run out of the shower and show up to the meeting at 5:02, signed into the Sunday night. But the point of Alcoholics Anonymous is to find a solution. For me, is to find a solution to my problem, which is alcoholism. And lo and behold, that same solution works for every other problem I have, as long as I stay sober and help another alcoholic. But so right after my wife and I get married, a lot of things happen. Life gets pretty lifey, as life does sometimes. And so I end up, actually 3 grandfathers died in the period of a week. And one of them was the closest thing I had to a dad growing up. And I didn't know how it affected me at the time, but I started having trouble getting out of bed. I owned my own business, and I was not really putting a lot of effort towards it. And so therefore not a lot was showing up. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. It's a Zoom life. There, I feel better. I just, welcome. So I can't get out of bed, and I'm struggling. I didn't know that I was affected emotionally. I can't say if I was depressed. I never saw a doctor or anything. Right after that, a couple months later, or maybe a month later, my wife had her first miscarriage. That was pretty brutal. I was really excited to be a dad. I even announced it at my Saturday night meeting when I took a cake, and we were expecting. Naturally there was expectations, and then we weren't expecting, and I was pretty sad. Right after that, my uncle took his life. He burned the house down, my grandmother's house, and my mom was living there. My mom got everyone out, and then he went up to my grandmother, and he shot himself, and before that he said, "Watch this," and he shot himself. And my mom called 911. She said my brother just committed suicide. And then she smelled the burning and crackling. She said, "Oh my God, I think he set the house on fire." She got my mom, my grandmother, and herself out. And there was a foreign exchange student, oddly enough. She got the animals. It was pretty rough. And I got there pretty quick, considering it was in Upland. I think the combination, my uncle was a meth addict, and then you factor in Pomona, then you factor in resentment, and it's just like there was a recipe for disaster. Right after that, we had our second miscarriage. Start wondering if it's in the cards for us. It's pretty sad. And we just had a year plus, probably like a year and a half of just life. And I'm not exempt from life. My program at that time was pretty stellar. I was waking up, reading my books, inviting God in, telling everyone I love my life. But I was a shell of a man if I could get out of bed. My wife was supporting both of us. My mom came to move in with us. We have a second bedroom, It was pretty rough. And I started doing that part where I invite God into my life and inviting abundance into my life. I hear the word abundance. I don't know about you, but I hear that word and I feel like someone's touching me inappropriately. It just feels funky, inviting abundance into my life. Like, get off of me. I had nothing to lose. What's going to happen if I take a quick 5 to 8 seconds to invite God into my life? And God showed up big within 10 days. And the next thing you know, work starts ringing off the hook. My phone, business. I made more money in a couple months than I had made in my whole life. My mom found a place to live. And then my wife got pregnant. As you saw, you met Harper Violet. She's a sweetheart. She's a firecracker, man. We're saving up for rehab, not college, got to put away. I mean, it's, the old option play. Who knows? Next thing you know, it's college. I'm open to both. I'm not sort of setting a course. I'm just saying, be prepared, kind of a Boy Scout, if you will. I found out that my biological father, the guy on my birth certificate, that he passed away like 8 years ago. And I was sad. I never met him. And I was pretty bummed about that. And I ended up getting a copy of his death certificate so that I could find out what happened, because he died. He was about 50 years old. And it turns out he died from alcoholism. And the underlying reason was depression. And I thought, Pops, I get it. I wouldn't have called me either. You know what I mean? Funny thing, I did one of those DNA tests. I don't know if you guys ever did that Ancestry.com kind of thing, but I did that. And a lot of people in this meeting know this story, but for those that don't, out of towners, I ended up doing it, and I got my results. This was like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And I just wanted to find out how Irish I was, and for those that care, I'm 62%. Pretty neat, huh? Yeah, so didn't think anything of it. If you ever do those, you get spammed like crazy. They email you every other week, seeing if you want to go premium, which is basically give us another $100 and find out if you're related to some historical figure like Ben Franklin, or like next week it's like Genghis Khan, and you're like, okay, I think we're all related to Genghis Khan. I'm not giving you $100 to figure that out. One week I wake up, I just gotten back from Ireland, family's from Sligo, and I ended up waking up in Big Bear next to my wife and my daughter. And as I said prior to my wife, I was kind of a earmuffs, babe. She's looking at me. Oh, I'm getting the look. Like I said, prior to her, I was a bit of a man of convenience. And so when I woke up and this email said DNA match, parent/child, I instantly knew that my daughter had an older brother or sister, because as I said, my father passed away. And I opened it up and it said Roy A. And I'm getting a cookie here. I don't know if you guys can see this cookie. I'm not going to have the thank you, sweetheart. But I won't say his birthday because he's in the room and you guys don't need all that detail. But it said 1962. And I went, 1962? Not my kid. Careful, sweetheart. And I screenshot it, take a little picture of it, and I send it over to my mom via text, and I say, ? And she writes back in caps lock. She drops an F-bomb, and then she says, call me. And I called her. She picked up, I'd say really fast, really, really fast. And I say, what's going on? And she tells me this story about how she was dating who was on my birth certificate, Bob, and they were high school sweethearts, and they broke up right before prom. Big high school blowout. And she started dating her coworker at McDonald's, my dad, Roy. And they dated for a couple months and hooked up a little, went to prom together. And then she got back together with Bob. And there was a lot of Bob and like a short period with Roy, and then a lot of Bob. But Roy's got that good stuff, tell you what. Hey, and here I am. Hey, again, no arbiters, right? You know what I mean? Some of us are straight pepper, Dad knows what's up. So instantly I go to Facebook to figure out who this guy is, and I find him. Hey, you, what do you find? Oh, I'm getting little fingers here. And I go to Facebook and I find him. And every year, first I find that he's been at the same job for 30-ish years. He's been married for 30-ish years. He's got a 32-year-old daughter. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got a sister. And man, the whole thing was trippy. And then I look, and every year he's got 2 birthdays. And I'm thinking, 2 birthdays? I was like, wait a minute. Only one type of person on the planet I know has got 2 birthdays in a calendar year. That's us. That's this meeting, Lo and behold, he's sober. And then I start tripping out. I'm thinking, wait a minute, what if I have more time than Pops? He starts trying to give me advice. I'll be like, Pops, listen, wait till you get, 17 years and then you can come talk to me. But until then, time rides, okay? But he's got 2.5 years more than me. In January, he celebrated 21 years. He's met my beautiful daughter and my wife, and we've spent time together. We've had Dodger games, and we've talked until there was nothing else to talk about, and there's never an awkward moment between us. I had tangible evidence between a birth certificate and a death certificate that I would never meet who I thought to be my father. And I was completely wrong. The beautiful part about this program is just the day-to-day. It's a mutual. Oh. Sorry, I just got a call there. That threw me off. Sort of hijacked my screen. If you are new, old, or used, there's a part in the back of the book there, the second appendix, the spiritual experience. And there's a quote by a guy, Herbert Spencer, and he talks about contempt prior to investigation. And if you are new, old, or used, I urge you, regardless of where you are in your path, I beg you to continue to investigate. And you never know. Next thing you know, you find a dad or you find your child. But that's all I got. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for having me, Carl.